enough of the background. Let's go into some of the dreams. I usually spend, as much as 3 days covering this material, and I've got an hour and a half, so I'm going to keep running along. We look at two main categories of dreams. Two. There's two, you've heard that. There's three kinds of people in the world, those who can count and those who can't. There's two main categories of dreams. Miscellaneous is one. And we classify among miscellaneous the natural process dreams. Science shows us that we have to dream. If we stop our dream process for any more than a few days, we'll start to suffer emotional breakdown. Sometimes the busyness of the day will cause us to dream. I like to equate that with a mental defrag, if you're familiar with computer terminology. It's just taking all the little bits and pieces of a busy day and trying to put some order to them. Our body or our body chemistry will influence our dreams. John Paul Jackson talks about pregnancy and how many ladies who are pregnant will have a really mixed up dream, and it's because there's an overlap or a double exposure between the mother's dream and the infant's dream. And it's okay, it'll pass in 9 months. But those sorts of things will have an effect. I've got listed here false dreams. The Bible talks about them. It's not really that the dreams are false, it's that they're used for wrong reasons, for selfish reasons. People make the dream, they interpret the dream the way they want it to be interpreted rather than letting God speak to them. And that's a false use. We're to be aware of that. That's miscellaneous. What we're interested in is message dreams, and that's going to be our focus from here on. And of message dreams, we break them up into three main categories. Subjective, also called personal dreams. These are dreams that are for and about yourself, the dreamer. We also have objective dreams, also called impersonal dreams. And that's because they're for and about others, not the dreamer. And then we have combination dreams. And it's no surprise that it's a combination of both. We define them as dreams that are for others, but they affect or influence you as well. Got that? Now, aside from these, tomorrow I'll be talking about a caregiver's dream, a little bit more about literal dreams, but these are the main three categories that most of our dreams will fall into. And of these three types, we have various purposes. God gives them to us to encourage us, to give us guidance, direction, healing, just all kinds of things. Getting back to these three types, a subjective dream or a personal dream is for and about you. How do you know your dream is subjective? If you are active in the dream, then it's for you and about you. Now, how did we come up with this? We like to try and fit things into formulas. 3 steps, 10 steps, whatever. We tried to do the same thing, and right now it's expanding a little bit, but what we found when we looked at the dreams in the Bible, there was a pattern to them, and it seemed to follow this. And we'll talk about the other two. And when we put it together, we presented it to Mark Virkler. Do you know Dr. Mark Virkler? Anybody? He's in Buffalo. He does a lot of speaking. He's interested in dreams as well. And he was kind of surprised and decided to go into Scripture and find out was this valid? And he did the same thing as us, double checking our work, and came to the conclusion that this really works. And we found that it does with people's dreams, having gone through hundreds of dreams with people. So if you're active in the dream is for you and about you, regardless of who else is in the dream. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because this is important. We can get into a lot of trouble when we go to somebody and say, you were in my dream, and I saw in the dream that you were stealing this or killing so-and-so or doing some other atrocity, and we heap a lot of guilt on them, and the dream was never for them if you were active in the dream. The way to know how to deal with people in your dreams is to see them much the same as we see every day in the movies. Star Wars, one of my favorites. I see Harrison Ford and Chewbacca are always together. They're never apart. And then I see another movie, Air Force One, or the president, where he's the president in this plane, and I'm looking for Chewbacca because they're always together, right? No, they're not. When we're watching these movies, we automatically make the transition between Harrison Ford's role here in this movie and his role in this other movie. And that's the same approach we need to take with people in our dreams. Look at the role that they're playing. The role is important, not who the actor is. Try and find out what that person means to you, how they've influenced you. And then you'll start to understand what God's speaking to you. Here's an example of a personal dream or subjective dream. As I waited in the boxing ring for the start of round 1, my trainer told me to do nothing. The bell sounded, we moved in, danced around, but did nothing. The bell sounded, ending the round, and I sat in my corner until the bell started round 2. This time, we jabbed at each other. I hit him, he missed me. I threw a left-right combo, and he went down for the count. I went back to my corner shouting, I got him. And my trainer said, I knew you could do it. Anybody had a dream about boxing here? And that was one of my dreams. I was a boxer. And God uses the symbols in a personal way. We'll talk about that some more. It's a tremendous encouragement to me. He's got a lot more confidence in me than I think I'm self-aware of in myself. Okay, an objective dream or an impersonal dream. This is a dream in which you are only observing. You're not active, you're observing. Get that? You're not active, you're observing. And that kind of a dream is for and about others and not yourself. Why would God give you those kinds of dreams? Well, it's more of a prophetic dream than the first type. God would give that to you, we tell people, for one of two reasons: intercession or intervention. Intercession, God needs someone to stand in the gap. If we have intercessors here, you may have more of those kinds of dreams than others would. Generally, we throw out a number of 90 to 95% of our dreams will be personal or subjective, and the rest will be some of the others. But if you're an intercessor or you're prophetic, you may have more of these because God needs you to do something. Interceding is safe. That means that you and God just talk about the dream and you invite Him into the situation. You don't talk to anybody else about it. God's given it to you because He needs someone to stand in the gap. Then you can pray as well, do you need me to intervene or to go to the person and tell them the dream? Sometimes that may be necessary. God's not able to get their attention and He needs someone with skin on to go over and talk to them. And that may be something to do, but that's a last resort. Pray first. You can never go wrong praying. And the third type of dream is a combination or interpersonal dream. This is a dream that's for and about you, for and about others, but affects you. And in this kind of dream, you may be active for a while, and then you stop and you're watching the rest and not going back into it. Or you're watching for a while and then you step in to be active. Did you catch that? There's a clear break between those activities. An example of that would be Joseph's dream with the sheaves. He starts out by saying, we were in the field binding sheaves. And then he says, and lo, I saw, and he's describing what he's seeing. And I believe that dream was given to the brothers, but it did influence or affect Joseph as well. And it's interesting that the brothers were so convinced of the validity or the truth or the outcome of that dream that they plotted, number one, to kill him, and then they ended up selling him as a slave. And I can see in their mind they're saying, now see if we bow down to you. You're a slave, we're free men. Well, God's got a little bit more up his sleeve than just that, and he did. So that's a combination. You see the difference. These three types are very, really important to be clear about. Here's an example of a combination dream that I had. I saw the core of a city. It was in darkness. One building had a triangular shape, and on the roof there was this silly-looking grin staring up at me. I turned to the right, and I saw a platter coming towards me, and on the platter there was some socks, and there were Christian symbols on the socks. And after I watched it for a moment, I went back to see the city, and then everything vanished, and I found myself looking at a wall. This is one of those intrusions into my time and space. And I thought to myself, wow, that's strange. Tried to sit down and, okay, what might this mean to me? I couldn't put my hand on any part of it. And like sometimes what happens, God gives us dreams, and he hasn't given us all the keys to it yet. And so I just kind of set it aside. I thought, well, I'll keep this in my mind because, there's something coming here. I think it's important. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, my wife and I, I had this when I was in Australia. My wife and I went to Canberra, that's the capital of Australia, there was a teacher exchange that she had to take part on, and all the spouses got to go on a bus and drive around to the different attractions and just enjoy the time out. And so I was on one of these buses. We had stopped at the Commonwealth Gardens and went through the display, and they talked about Canberra and how it was designed and everything else, and it was really nice. And I got back into the bus and was waiting for some of the stragglers, and I happened to look out the window. Oh, this is kind of the triangular shape that I saw of that building. I looked out the window, and I see this banner flapping in the wind. And you can see it's upside down, but there's the triangle, and there's the silly grin. And I saw that, and it was like being hit with a 2x4. It was boom, and all of a sudden it all started coming together. And this sometimes happens with dreams. So don't get frustrated if you don't understand it right away. But I started to see this, and then the whole thing unfolded to me, and I realized that when we were in that building, they were talking about this guy Griffin, who had won a contest to design this city. And he designed it with their parliament buildings here, and they have a lake built in here, and streets all over the place, and everything started to come together for me. They have this is the map, a more formal map, current with their lake. You can see the lake and streets. The Capitol building built into a hill is really beautiful, well laid out. But what occurred to me almost right away is the symbol. Mr. Griffin was a Freemason. And the whole city is founded on this shape. Well, what do you do when you start to realize this? Well, my wife and I decided what we needed to do that evening when it was dark was we went up into a mountain which was just down at the bottom, Mount Elise here. We went up in the mountain that overlooked